Why am I talking about Paxlovid? I woke up this morning thinking about it for some random reason, and it caused me to do a little bit of research because if you remember, Paxlovid, produced by Pfizer, an antiviral, was supposed to be the next big thing. When last have you heard about it? The truth is that it is still recommended. However, because of the cost, its use is going down. Certainly in the UK, they are no longer prescribing it as much. And they have a problem from the perspective that it's just not as effective as they thought it would be. And so the question is why? What in the world happened? And so I'm going to teach you a little bit of science. And to be frank with you, if Pfizer is watching this, what I'm going to say here is only a piece of what I know, and they should probably give me a call because I think I know what the solution is to their current problem. So, whichever way we take it, whatever your perspective, COVID is still circulating. A lot of people are getting sick, and anything that can have benefit is likely to be valuable. And so the first thing you have to understand is what is this drug, Paxlovid? And so I've got here the original trial from 2022, and it is oral nirmatrelvir for high risk, non hospitalized adults. And it's a combination drug. And the antiviral part here is combined with another drug, ritonavir, which keeps it in circulation. It helps with the metabolism of it so that it keeps it to have a higher dose. And this paper was done in April of 2022, and it was huge. This is what caused people to buy shares in Pfizer because they thought they were going to make a mint. And the reason they were going to do that is because when they did this symptomatic, unvaccinated, non hospitalized adults trial in late 2020 into 2021, they found that treatment of symptomatic COVID with Paxlovid resulted in the risk of progression to severe COVID-19. It was 89% lower. Remember, this is relative risk, not absolute risk, than with placebo. And so this was great. And therefore, they invested expecting that this was going to be the next big thing on top of the mRNA vaccines. Well, as time has it, it's not worked out in the same way that they expected. And it was because the follow up paper hit a snag. Now, you have to remember something. You have to look carefully at what it says in the original paper. This was completely unvaccinated, non hospitalized adults. But then, guess what? The people who were getting COVID were vaccinated. So now they got a problem. And so they then had to say, okay, well, we're going to likely to be having the same benefit in the vaccinated cohort. So let's see what happens. So then when they do their study on the vaccinated cohort, again, they hit a snag and it's not what they expected. So when they looked at this time, they were comparing the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated in adult outpatients. Again, similar kind of phase 2, phase 3 trial. They gave them for 5 days, 1-to-1 ratio between the placebo and the treatment group for 5 days every 12 hours. So they were picking people who were fully vaccinated as well against COVID and who had at least one risk factor for severe disease, as well as patients without such risk factors who had been vaccinated against COVID or who had not been vaccinated within the previous year. They were eligible. This was supposed to be the big money breakthrough because if you think about it, they now had the perfect scenario where you had vaccinated the population. Guess what? They're still getting COVID. Well, guess what? We have an antiviral that will work even on the vaccinated who are still getting COVID. This is brilliant. But they hit a snag. Because when they looked at the outcomes in this second study here, in terms of alleviation of all signs and symptoms of COVID-19 did not differ significantly between participants who receive Paxlovid and those that receive placebo. Oh my goodness. It doesn't work. How in the world did that happen? That's the question. And now in that question is the piece of the puzzle that nobody really wants to talk about. And so you have on two sides, the drug company has a drug that can help, but in order for them to use it, there has to be an acknowledgement of a problem. Because one of the interesting things that was happening with boosted patients when they had Paxlovid is rebound. This never happened with the original trial in the unvaccinated. So it wasn't even something they thought could happen. What was happening is that people would get 5 days of Paxlovid. They'll start to feel better. As soon as they stop, they get on well again. That's the rebound. Why in the world would that be happening? So this is where we get into the interesting science. And this is why I said, in order to try and understand what is happening, you have to acknowledge that there is a problem. So again, just some simple scientific things. When we think about Paxlovid, this is the virus entering a cell. It then releases this RNA, and this RNA has to then be transcribed into proteins, which will then make up another virus. And in this case, and this is an image from lopinavir, but it's the same principle with regards to Paxlovid. It then blocks this protease so that it can't make proteins. Perfect. And therefore, the virus can't make new particles. It doesn't block it completely, but it slows it down enough that the immune system can kick in and clear the rest. But guess what? There's another piece of the puzzle that nobody's taking into consideration. When we look at this principle, again, the viral spike protein with this, this is the spike protein, this is the virus here, multiple spike proteins on the surface. And what are the interesting things that happened with regards to the Pfizer and the Moderna is that they added proline to make it more stable. And what we're finding now is that these spike proteins are triggering IgG4. Now, if you've heard this before, it's very simple. IgG is the most long-term antibody. That's what you usually have for immunity. 1 and 3 are the ones that help to destroy viruses and bacteria. And 4 teaches your immune system to tolerate it. This is what is rising in the context of these boosters. So you're having a situation here where you are boosting people who are getting infected, and there's recent research to show that the higher the IgG, the higher the risk of infection. Makes perfect sense. It's a tolerant antibody. It's not like the IgG1 and IgG3. It's a tolerant antibody. And so when you have this situation occurring, the vaccinated and boosted cohort have high IgG, and from early in 2022, we knew that this was 38 times higher than what we would expect. Normally, IgG is not very high. It surges after the third dose. This would fit perfectly with when they were doing the study on Paxlovid. It was from about August of 2021 to about July of 2022. Two things were happening. They were boosting people, and Omicron appeared in December. And you know that Omicron, then in terms of the unvaccinated, if you hadn't been exposed before, you got what appeared to be a milder infection, and therefore you got immunity. So the unvaccinated suddenly had natural immunity, wouldn't benefit from an antiviral because their natural mucosal immunity would have been adequate. The vaccinated, on the other hand, were being boosted, and they were getting higher and higher IgG4 levels. And we can see from this study here with the class switch you are talking about 40 to 45% of the antibodies being produced. That's the yellow part, is IgG4. No wonder they're getting infected. But the question is coming back to why and what is the connection between IgG4 and patients probably getting rebound and the failure of Paxlovid? Watch carefully again. Remember the principles here. So let's go back to what happens with the virus. The virus enters the cell, it releases the RNA. The RNA then gets transcribed by this protease, this enzyme that makes lots of protein so that the virus can replicate. This drug binds into the protease here, which comes from the virus. And so it's a very specific targeted drug for this virus. It's supposed to inhibit it and therefore slow down the replication of virus. But they thought that they only needed 5 days because this is what worked on the unvaccinated. Little did they know that the immune system in the vaccinated is no longer the same as it was in the unvaccinated. That's the problem. There is no acknowledgement that, in effect, in order for this drug to work, 5 days is not long enough if somebody is vaccinated and boosted with IgG4. They may need 10 days or up to 15 days. That's normally what we do with somebody who is immune suppressed. Am I saying that they are immune suppressed? I didn't say that. I may have thought it, but I didn't say it. But that's the problem. And so we have a situation here where, in order to change the use of an antiviral, they will have to acknowledge that the immune system in the boosted cohort is no longer as effective at managing the viral infection. Now, who is going to do that? And so they're stuck in the middle. What are they going to do? Are they going to say, goodness, we accept, there's a problem here. We're going to have to give you longer Paxlovid. It's going to cost 2 to 3 times as much, but we have no choice because we can't seem to control the infection. Well, here is where I think I have a solution. It's very simple. When you understand how the virus works, if you then combine it. So imagine that they still have Paxlovid. This is primarily for those who are boosted with IgG4. They will struggle to control the virus. They have a situation where the immune system is just not as responsive. They may need Paxlovid if they get an infection, but they need longer than 5 days, but you don't want to pay more for it. There may be a trick. Very, very simple. And this is now going back to the science here. If you understand how the virus works, and this is from a study about SARS-CoV-2 replication in airway epithelium, and what it shows you is that the virus binds to the motile cilia. These are like hairs in, say, the nostril, and this cream part is mucus. And so they're sticking up above the mucus, and this is what the virus binds to. It shuttles down, gets inside the cell, infects it, and because it can't get out because of the mucus, it causes these microvilli to become almost like trees within 48 hours, and then it can spread like wildfire. And this is the technique that is being used by the virus. So anything that inhibits or slows this process is going to benefit. The critical piece of the puzzle is PAC1 and PAC4. This is a protein enzyme that helps to cause this to grow into a tree-like structure. If you impact on this and slow this down, you will impact on the ability of the virus to spread and therefore give this sluggish, boosted immune system some time to respond. One of the things that can do this is very simply vitamin D. And so, in effect, if they are willing to finally acknowledge what all the evidence has been telling us. There's been another big paper that came out showing the benefit of vitamin D in COVID. This is likely to be one of the primary reasons that it was able to do it. Very good chance that if in those vaccinated, boosted people with IgG4 and sluggish immune systems who need longer Paxlovid, instead of giving them longer Paxlovid, combine it with vitamin D and see whether or not you get better outcomes. That's the reality. The problem that we've got at the moment is that it seems that some people, rather than acknowledging what has happened, would close their eyes, look away, and think, let's hope this problem goes away, because we would rather not acknowledge that we've created a bigger problem here. We have to find ways to help the patients who are being affected. And at this point, all of the evidence is pointing to the fact that the immune system in those who have been boosted is not as effective as those who have natural immunity. Now, we're not arguing about whether or not people who were unvaccinated and died from severe COVID early in the pandemic. That was then. We're looking at now. Those people who survived and are doing well and are not getting infected because they have good natural mucosal immunity, they are miles ahead in terms of their immune response. What we have to do now is figure out what to do for those who are vaccinated, boosted, IgG4, sluggish immune response. They need support in order to get over infections, because they will put themselves and others at risk if they are unable to control viral replication. This is where we are at the moment. And listen, I haven't even told you the other solutions that could work in combination. That may get me into more trouble, but there are. Once you understand what is happening, you can find ways to help. And believe me, at this point, as many solutions as we have are worth having for the population. Have a great evening.